I know exactly what you're thinking. You see the headline version of my life. Wife says she spent the weekend at a wellness retreat. Actually spent it in a cabin with her ex. Came home. Husband is on the couch with a lawyer. And your brain instantly makes me the villain. You picture me sneaking around, laughing behind his back, living some double life. So let me start the way I always do when I tell the story. No, I did not share a bed with my ex. No, we didn't recreate old times. No, I did not kiss him or anything like that. But yes, I lied about where I was. Yes, I turned off location. Yes. I chose my ex over my husband for a whole weekend, then told myself it was harmless because we're just friends, and my husband decided he was done being the last to know. So if you're going to judge me, and you will, at least hear the full story, not just the part where I walk in with my suitcase and see a stranger in a suit next to my husband. My husband's name is Andrew. We've been married for 5 years, together for almost 8, stable, predictable, reliable, all the things everyone tells you you're supposed to want. Before Andrew, there was Lucas. Lucas was the classic intense guy, all late-night talks, loud fights, grand gestures, impulsive road trips, and zero long-term planning. He made me feel like the center of the universe, and also like the world might fall apart any second. We broke up because we wanted different lives. That's the polite version. The less polished version. I wanted something steady and secure. He wanted to stay in see what happens mode forever. So I walked away. I cried for months. Then I met Andrew, the man who shows up when he says he will, who pays bills on time, who remembers my favorite tea without asking. Andrew gave me peace. Lucas gave me intensity. I chose peace. What nobody warns you about is that years later, when the routines settle in, a small, ugly part of you can start missing the intensity you once ran from. You start rewriting history. He wasn't that bad. We were just young. We had such a deep connection. You don't remember the nights you cried yourself to sleep. You remember the road trips, the inside jokes, the looks across crowded rooms. So when Lucas messaged me one Tuesday afternoon, it was like the universe dangling that feeling in front of my face. Lucas, hey stranger, some of us from college are doing a cabin weekend next month. Board games, hiking, zero phone signal. You should come if you're free. Just like that. No long build-up. No endless apology paragraphs. Just an invitation to step back into a version of myself I wasn't sure I was completely done with. I stared at the message way too long. My first thought was, absolutely not. My second thought was, why not? We're adults now. My third thought was, Andrew will never understand. Not, Andrew will never allow it. He's never been that type. Understand. He's grounded. He doesn't keep exes as friends. When he moves on, he actually moves on. He doesn't go back and revisit. If I said the words, my old boyfriend invited me to a cabin for the weekend. But don't worry, it's with college friends. Totally innocent. He would look at me with that calm, serious face and say something like, I'm not comfortable with that. And then I would feel controlled. And then I would feel like a teenager asking for permission. And then I would get defensive. So instead of having that conversation, I did what I'm apparently very good at. I found a way around it. I told myself I deserved time away. A reset. A break from being the responsible one. We'd been arguing about little things for months. Chores, money, how often I was checked out in the evenings. I told myself, if he made me feel more appreciated, I wouldn't even be tempted to go. It's funny how quickly you can turn your own choices into someone else's fault. The lie came out of my mouth so naturally that I genuinely scared myself. We were cleaning up after dinner when I casually said, Oh, by the way, remember Mia from my old job? Yeah, Andrew said, rinsing plates. The one who moved to another city? Her and some other girls are doing like a little wellness retreat, I said, trying to sound bored. Boring yoga, healthy food, that kind of thing. They invited me next month. It's just 2 nights. He didn't look up immediately. "Where?" he asked. "Some cabin outside the city," I said lightly. "They booked it as a group. It's like one of those package things." He nodded slowly. "Sounds nice," he said. "You probably need the break." Just like that. No interrogation, no suspicion, just support. "You're okay with it?" I asked, almost disappointed he didn't put up a fight. He shrugged. "Why wouldn't I be? You work hard. Go let someone force-feed you green juice for a weekend." I laughed, kissed his cheek, felt a wave of guilt, and then immediately covered that guilt with justification. If he trusts me this much, then obviously it's harmless. If he's not even asking more questions, it means I'm overthinking. It's just old friends. It's fine. I texted Lucas that night. "I'm in." He replied with a smile emoji and, "It'll be good to catch up. Like old times, but less chaotic." That line played on repeat in my mind for weeks. Like old times, but less chaotic. Safe nostalgia. Controlled intensity. At least, that's what I told myself. You don't realize how many small systems in your life are built on trust until you start rearranging them to hide something. We had shared everything. A digital calendar, shared notes about bills, location sharing for safety, joint bank account for most expenses, all the things you set up when you believe you're on the same team. I didn't plan some big scheme, I just adjusted details. On the shared calendar, I put "Retreat Mia and Girls" with a little leaf emoji. In our group chat with my mom and sister, I mentioned going away with the girls for wellness stuff. Laid the groundwork. When I booked the cabin, I didn't put it on our joint card. I used my personal card to keep things simple. That part felt sneaky, and I hated that it felt exciting. Then there was location sharing. 1 week before the trip, when we were out with friends and someone joked about location tracking, I laughed and said, "Sometimes I hate that my phone shows everywhere I go. I want one weekend where nobody knows where I am. Total disconnect." Andrew said, "We can turn it off for the weekend if you want. I trust you're not running off to join a circus." Everyone laughed. I smiled and stored that sentence away like a permission slip. 3 days before the cabin trip, I got a text while I was at work. From Lucas. "Just a heads up, guys can't bring partners, right? So nobody gets weird about it. It's just us like before. You good with that?" I stared at that "like before" a little too long. No partners. Just the old group. I could have backed out then. I could have said, "You know what? This feels unfair to my husband. I'm out." Instead, I interpreted that message in the way that best served me. See? It's not about romance. Partners of anyone aren't allowed. It's just about the group. So I wrote back, "Yeah, all good. See you there." Did my stomach twist a little? Yes. Did I listen to that? No. On Friday morning, I kissed Andrew goodbye in the kitchen. He handed me a coffee in a reusable cup and said, "Enjoy your yoga. Don't come back all enlightened and ready to throw out everything in the house." I laughed. No promises. He looked tired but soft. He put his hand on my waist and added, "If you need to turn your phone off for a while, do it. Just send me one message when you get there so I know you're safe." I wrapped my arms around his neck and hugged him. I really did love him in that moment. Love is such a strange thing. It can sit right next to selfishness and somehow not cancel it out. "I will," I said. I got in the car with a neatly packed suitcase, a yoga mat strapped in the back like a prop. Once I was 2 streets away, my heart started pounding. I drove to a parking lot, opened my phone, and turned off our shared location. It took 3 taps. Just like that, the little piece of honesty on the map disappeared. The cabin was beautiful in that curated, rustic way. Exposed beams, big windows, a fireplace, too many blankets thrown over sofas for effect. When I walked in, I saw familiar faces from college. Sam on the couch, Anna in the kitchen, Mark carrying groceries. And then, near the balcony door, Lucas. He looked older, obviously, a bit more tired around the eyes, but still him. He smiled when he saw me. Not that wild, reckless grin from our early 20s, softer, but my chest still reacted like no time had passed. "You made it," he said, crossing the room in a few long steps. "Of course I made it," I replied, hugging him. It was a normal hug, longer than you give a coworker, shorter than a lover. My brain immediately started doing gymnastics. If someone recorded this, it would look innocent. This is fine. This is friendly. This is what emotional maturity looks like. We spent the first evening cooking, laughing about old memories, catching up on who got married, who moved away, who had kids. I didn't bring up Andrew much. When people asked, I answered, "Yeah, he's good, working a lot. Couldn't come. This is just a friend thing anyway." Lucas didn't mention his relationships either. At some point, when we were all sitting around the fireplace, he said quietly, "I'm glad you came." I smiled into my mug and pretended that sentence didn't carry a whole history behind it. Part of the cabin's appeal was that the signal was weak. Messages took longer to send. Calls often failed. Notifications came in delayed clumps. To everyone else, this was a slight inconvenience. To me, it was the perfect excuse. "Sorry if I answer late," I texted Andrew that first night. "Connection is terrible here, but I'm safe. Love you." He answered, "Thanks for letting me know. Enjoy. Love you too." That should have warmed me. Instead, I read it and thought, that's it. No, "I miss you already." No, "Send pictures of the house." It's amazing how endless your expectations get when you're already looking for reasons to feel neglected. After that message, I flipped my phone face down and didn't check it for hours. It was easy to tell myself that was healthy and present. In reality, it was convenient. I didn't have to see any messages from Andrew. I didn't have to feel guilty. I especially didn't have to imagine him at home, in our quiet apartment, eating leftover pasta, trusting I was lying on a yoga mat, somewhere doing breathing exercises. The final day was Sunday. Most people were packing up, finishing food, exchanging, "We should do this again." Promises nobody really keeps. It was raining softly. We made a fire. I curled up in an armchair with a blanket, holding a glass of red wine. Across from me, Lucas was on the floor by the fireplace, adding more wood, the flames lighting his profile. The scene looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Utterly calm, golden, pretend natural. Without thinking too much, I lifted my phone. I recorded a 3-second loop of the glass, the fire flickering behind it. A boomerang. The same kind people share every autumn. I added a simple overlay text. "Last night, needed this." No faces, no names, just vibes. I hesitated a second, then posted it to my story. "Is that wise?" a tiny voice in my head whispered. "It's a glass and a fire," I answered it. "Nobody can see anything. There's nothing to see." Except there was. If you zoomed in the curved reflection of the glass, you could make out a figure sitting on the floor, the outline of a shoulder, a jaw, short hair. If you knew Lucas, you'd recognize his shape, the hoodie he always wore. I didn't notice that. Andrew did. I learned later what happened on Andrew's end, from his sister. He was at home, scrolling absent-mindedly through stories after a long run. Saw my name, opened my story, saw the glass, the fire, the text. Almost skipped past it, until something about the shape near the bottom caught his eye. He held his phone closer, zoomed in, and saw what I had conveniently ignored, Lucas's reflection in the glass. He recognized him instantly. They had only met twice, but once is enough when someone used to date your wife. He didn't throw the phone. He didn't call me immediately. He didn't flood me with angry messages. He opened his laptop, opened a folder he had created months ago labeled insurance. Screenshots of small things that hadn't sat right. My location going off suddenly, by accident, one time, I went to see a friend. A hotel charge on our joint statements from months before, that I had brushed off as work-related and promised to reimburse and never did. A restaurant receipt for two from a place I told him I'd gone alone to think. An old message thread he had briefly seen pop up once when he handed me my phone. Lucas's name, partly hidden, but enough for him to remember, my gradual habit of turning my phone face down whenever he walked in. He had noticed more than I wanted to believe. Instead of starting a fight, he had quietly documented. I call that dramatic. He calls it preparation. He forwarded the folder to an email contact named M. Harris Family Law. Then he typed, "I think it's time to move forward. She is at a cabin with someone she told me was in her past. We can talk tomorrow." When I pulled into our driveway Sunday evening, I felt good, tired in that satisfied way, reset, seen. Even though nothing physical had happened with Lucas, the attention, the in-jokes, the way he still remembered tiny details about me made me feel alive, if I'm being honest. I had already decided which parts I would tell Andrew. How was it? Oh, so relaxing. We did breathing exercises, nature, no phones. Edited, safe highlights. The cabin version of me and the wife version of me were two different people in my mind. I opened the front door. "Hey, I stopped. Andrew was sitting on the couch. Beside him, a man in a suit with a leather briefcase. The air in the room felt thick, like sound had been turned down. "Hi," Andrew said. His voice was calm. Too calm. The man next to him nodded politely. Everything inside me went cold. I said, trying to laugh. "What's going on? Did I miss a meeting invite?" "This is Michael Harris," Andrew said. "My lawyer." My grip tightened on the handle of my suitcase. Okay. Not a funny joke," I said quickly. "You're freaking me out." "It's not a joke," Andrew replied. He sounded like he'd reached the end of a long road. "Please sit down," the lawyer said. His tone was smooth, practiced. "We won't take much of your time." "I haven't even taken my shoes off," I protested. "Natalie," Andrew said quietly, and the way he used my full name made me shut up. "Sit down." I put my suitcase by the door and sat on the edge of the armchair, heart pounding. Michael opened his briefcase, took out a neat stack of papers and a slightly worn folder. On the tab, my name. "I'll be very clear," he said. "Andrew has consulted me informally over the past few months about some concerns in your relationship. He hoped things might change. Based on recent developments, he has decided to proceed." "Proceed with what?" I asked, even though I already knew. I just needed to hear someone say it. "Dissolution of marriage," the lawyer said. "Divorce," Andrew translated, in case I wanted the shorter version. I laughed. It came out too loud, too high. "Over a retreat," I said. "You're calling a lawyer over yoga and herbal tea." "You weren't at a retreat," Andrew replied. "You were at a cabin with Lucas." The room shrank. My first reflex was denial, obviously. "What?" I said. "Who told you that? That's insane. I was with friends from work." "You posted a video," he interrupted, still calm. A glass of wine by the fire. Lucas's reflection is clearly visible in the glass. My mouth went dry. "You zoomed in on a reflection?" I asked, trying to sound outraged instead of terrified. "Do you know how controlling that sounds?" "I recognize the shape of a man you once lived with," he said evenly. "Someone you swore you had blocked." So I looked closer. That's not control. That's awareness. The lawyer slid the folder toward me. "Please take a look," he said. Inside were printouts. The wineglass story enlarged. My location-sharing logs, where the signal disappeared right when I arrived at the cabin. Screenshots of past months where I'd turned it off by mistake. A restaurant receipt I truly had forgotten about. 2 main courses, 1 dessert, 1 bottle of wine, from a place I told Andrew I had eaten a quick salad alone after work. Attached to that receipt was a photo, apparently from my own social media from that night, of the same restaurant table with 2 glasses visible. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. "From your public profile," Andrew said. "The same one where you like to present your life. You're more transparent than you think." Another page, a hotel booking from 3 months ago, 1 night downtown, paid with our joint card. "I told you that was for a work event," I said quickly. "There was an early meeting." Michael flipped another page. "Your work sent an email about that event," he said, tapping a printout. "It took place at their office. No hotel required. Andrew forwarded me the email." Heat rushed to my face and ears. "You went through my emails?" I asked, grasping at anything. "He didn't need to," the lawyer said calmly. "They sent it to your shared address. That you both use." My brain tried to find holes, routes out, alternate angles. "I didn't do anything with Lucas," I blurted. "Nothing. We didn't cross any lines. We slept in separate rooms. It wasn't like that." Andrew's eyes finally flashed with something. Hurt? Anger? I'm not sure. "You really think this is only about what did or didn't happen in a bed?" he asked quietly. "You lied about where you were, who you were with. You turned off your location. You spent a whole weekend with someone you know is a point of pain in our history. And then you want credit because you didn't do anything physical." The way he said that word made me feel 12 years old. I hated that. "So what?" I snapped. "I'm not allowed to have a past, not allowed to have friends. You're acting like a detective over a reflection in a glass." Michael cleared his throat. "From a legal standpoint," he said, "we're not here to debate your social life. We're here to present your husband's intention. He has gathered what he considers a pattern of secretive behavior regarding this person, and he no longer wishes to remain in this marriage." He slid another set of papers toward me. Pre-filled forms, lines with my name, his name, boxes checked, Andrew's signature already on his line. My line, blank. "Can we talk privately?" I asked Andrew, ignoring the lawyer. "Without an audience? This is our marriage, not a business deal." "We've tried talking privately," he said. "You laughed, deflected, told me I was insecure. I brought Michael, so I wouldn't back down this time." "You're really going to let some stranger sit here while we rip our life apart?" I demanded. "He's the only person in this room who hasn't lied to me," Andrew replied. That stung more than I care to admit. "Overreacting doesn't even begin to cover what this is," I said, turning to the lawyer as if he might mediate in my favor. "I didn't hurt him. I didn't leave. I came home." Michael's face stayed neutral. "You did leave," he said mildly, "for a whole weekend. The fact that you physically returned does not erase that." "I needed space," I insisted. "Everyone says space is healthy. I wanted time to think without being judged." "Then you should have been honest about where you were thinking," Andrew said. I looked at him, really looked at him. He looked tired. Not like someone in the middle of an argument, like someone who had already packed emotionally a long time ago. "Why didn't you talk to me earlier?" I asked, suddenly desperate. "If this bothered you so much, why didn't you stop me before it got this far?" "I did," he said simply. "You just didn't hear it as stop. You heard it as you're trying to control me, and then did what you wanted anyway." My mind flashed back to the conversations I'd dismissed as, "You're too sensitive," about my posts, my contact with Lucas, my jokes about what life could have been like if I'd chosen differently. I had called those little disagreements. He had quietly filed them under warning signs. "You're throwing away a whole marriage because I spent a weekend with old friends," I said, playing the last card I had, guilt. Andrew looked at me for a long moment. "I'm ending a marriage because you keep choosing another man in small ways and calling it harmless," he said. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it cut in a way yelling never would have. "You chose him for late-night talks before we got married and hid it from me till I caught a message once," he continued. "You chose him when you lied about that hotel. You chose him when you needed space, but didn't want me to know where you were. And this weekend, You chose him again. Over honesty, over my comfort, over our vows. He paused. I'm finally choosing myself. That line, I'm choosing myself, annoyed me even as it hurt, because that was supposed to be my line. That's how you frame things when you're the one leaving, not the one being left. While Michael went over the legal points, division of property, timelines, communication through counsel, my mind wandered. I felt like I was floating above my own living room, watching a scene from a series. The wife, still in her retreat outfit, mascara slightly smudged, sitting on the edge of the chair. The husband, neat as ever, posture straight, hands folded. The lawyer, flipping pages like this is an everyday Tuesday. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed, a dog barked, life continued. At one point, I reached for my phone on instinct. I wanted to text my friend, my sister, someone. The screen lit up with a dozen notifications at once. Bank app. You have been removed from the following joint accounts. Streaming service. Your password has been changed. You no longer have access to this profile. Cloud storage. Your access to shared folders has been revoked. And, of course, where his contact used to be near the top of my recent messages, there was an empty space. I opened our conversation thread. Nothing new there. I typed, "We can still fix this. Please ask him to stop." The message failed to send. You cannot send messages to this contact. He had blocked me while we were sitting in the same room. He wasn't threatening to distance himself. He was already halfway gone. Eventually, the lawyer gathered his things. "I'll give you both a moment," he said, standing up. "Natalie, you can look through the papers and contact my office with any questions. Nothing has to be signed tonight, but the process has begun." He gave Andrew a small nod and walked out. The click of the door closing sounded too loud. I stared at the coffee table. "When did you start planning this?" I asked. "Honestly," Andrew said, "the night I saw a message from him pop up on your phone when you were in the shower, and you came out and lied about it so fast you didn't even breathe." "That was months ago," I whispered. "Yes," he said, "I hoped it was a phase. I hoped you'd realize you were playing a dangerous game. I tried to explain how it made me feel. You rolled your eyes and told me I was jealous of your friendships." There was no good response to that, so I reached for the other familiar script. "I didn't mean to hurt you," I said. "I just needed to feel like more than someone's wife for a second." "You didn't hurt me for a second," he replied. "You've been hurting me in slow motion, while telling yourself it doesn't count because you haven't done something you can label clearly." He picked up his keys. "I packed a bag earlier," he said. "I'll stay at my sister's for a while. You can stay here tonight. We'll work out the logistics later." "Andrew, please," I said, standing up too fast. "Don't walk out like this. We haven't even tried to fix it. We could go to counseling, we could—" He shook his head. "I don't want to spend the next few years sitting in a room explaining why spending weekends with your ex is not compatible with being married to me," he said calmly. "I don't want to be the person begging for the bare minimum of respect while you tell yourself you're just complicated." He walked to the door. "I hope he's worth it," he added quietly, "because everything we built ends here." "That's not fair," I said quickly. "He's not. I don't even know what he is to me anymore. It's not like I'm leaving you for him." "I know," Andrew said, opening the door. "You're not leaving. You're just always leaning in his direction. I'm the one leaving." Then he stepped out. The door clicked shut behind him. For a moment, I just stood there in the silence, expecting him to burst back in and say, "Just kidding. Let's talk." He didn't. You're probably wondering where Lucas fits into the aftermath. Did he sweep in and comfort me? Did we finally get together after all these years, justified by fate? No. I called him that night. He answered on the second ring, sounding annoyingly cheerful. "Survived re-entry," he joked. "Back to real life?" "I told him," I blurted out instead. "Well, kind of. He found out. About the cabin. About you." There was a pause. "Okay," he said slowly. "And?" "And he had a lawyer waiting," I said. "He wants a divorce. He had a whole folder of evidence. "This isn't funny, Lucas. My whole life is falling apart." "Ouch," he said. "I'm sorry?" He didn't sound particularly shocked, just uncomfortable. "Sorry," I repeated. "He thinks I chose you over him, that I've been— I don't even know what he thinks. He had receipts from months ago. He collected stuff, like I'm some criminal." "Well," Lucas said carefully, "from his perspective, seeing your wife spend a whole weekend with her ex and lie about it probably doesn't feel great." "I told you nothing happened," I snapped. "We were careful. We stayed in separate rooms. We didn't cross any lines." "I know," he said, "but you did cross one line, Nat. You crossed his." I hated that he used the same logic as Andrew. "So what now?" I asked, swallowing my pride. "What do we do?" "We," he echoed. "There's no we here. You're dealing with your marriage. I was just— there." "Just there?" I repeated, stunned. "You invited me." "And you said yes," he replied. "You're not a child. Look, I didn't ask you to lie to him. I assumed you'd told the truth. Would I have handled it the same way if I were him? Probably not, but I can see why he's upset." I felt something break again. "So that's it," I said. "You're just stepping back?" "What did you expect me to do?" he asked, finally sounding a little frustrated. "Show up at your house with flowers and say, 'Surprise, I'm the upgrade. I have my own mess. I didn't sign up to be the reason someone's marriage ends.'" He let out a breath. "I'm not angry at you," he added, "but I'm also not going to be your escape plan. You need to figure yourself out, not jump from one person to another." Then he said the line that annoyed me as much as it rang true. "Maybe spend a weekend alone next time, instead of calling it a retreat and using people as scenery." The call ended shortly after that. No grand confession, no secret declaration of love. Just a clear message. I had managed to lose one man without gaining another. Right now, I'm telling this from the couch that used to be ours. Andrew hasn't moved back. He sends short, polite updates through his lawyer about practical things. We haven't had a long, messy late-night talk. He doesn't give me that opportunity. The divorce process is moving. My friends are split. Some say, he went too far. He should have tried therapy. Ending a marriage over suspicion and screenshots. Cold. Others say, you lied. You shut his concerns down. You spent a whole weekend in a cabin with someone you have history with and told yourself it didn't count because you didn't do anything physical. What did you think would happen? When they talk, I notice something that makes me uncomfortable. I keep wanting to find the version where I'm mostly a victim. He blindsided me. He made a show of it with a lawyer. He collected evidence behind my back. All of that feels true in pieces, but so does this. I created the situation he reacted to. I lied. I hid. I turned off location. I minimized his feelings. I told myself intention mattered more than impact. I wanted to prove I still had options. I wanted to feel like I hadn't settled. I told myself I deserved time with someone who knew an earlier version of me. And then I acted shocked when my husband decided he also deserved better than being a background character in that story. People like lessons that sound neat. Don't lie. Communicate. Choose your partner every day. All true. All overused. The messier version, you can emotionally betray someone long before you ever touch another person. You can sit in a cabin with an old love, telling yourself you're being good because you slept in separate rooms, while your husband sits at home wondering why his gut feels wrong. You can spend a whole weekend as a slightly edited version of yourself, freer, lighter, more flirty, and then come home and say, nothing happened, like that erases the choice you made to show up there in the first place. And if that person decides your pattern of choices is enough reason to walk away, you don't get to frame it entirely as overreaction. Do I still think part of what Andrew did was dramatic? Yes. Do I also understand, more than I want to admit, why he reached that point? Also, yes. I spent a weekend with my ex as friends. My husband spent those days rereading every moment I made him feel second place. I came home, suitcase in hand, ready to start up the performance again. He was already at the final act. When I walked through the door, I thought I was returning to my life. I didn't realize I was stepping into the last scene. So here I am now, not at a wellness retreat, not in a cabin by the fire, just in a half-empty living room with a stack of legal papers and a phone that buzzes less than it used to. I wanted space. I got emptiness. I wanted to feel chosen. I showed over and over that I kept choosing somewhere else. And Andrew finally believed me.